Okay.
Yes.
So for a typical NetSuite implementation methodology, there are various methodologies that they adopt. If it is an Oracle, there's a suite success methodology. And then, if it is different companies, there are different sets of methodologies which are actually adopted. So basically, whatever methodology it is, there are four stages in an implementation, right? There is an engage stage, there is a drive, enable, and convert, right? So these are the four stages. The names might differ from company to company, if it is PwC, if it's Oracle, or if it is any other company which is implementing NetSuite. The stages that you see on my screen right now might vary, but then whatever is done under that, under each stage, would actually more or less would be the same. Okay. So once there is a sales team which actually pitches in with the project, and once the customer signs, then there is a initiation and project kickoff meeting that happens, right? So in this initiation and project kickoff meeting, there are all the stakeholders from the customer side. So there are different modules that we spoke about earlier, right? I was talking about purchase, sales, manufacturing, finance, marketing, and then customer management, customer relationship management. So there are certain key users from each portfolio which are there from the client side. Let us say the client has an employee base of around 200 people. So out of these 200 people, there is a project management team, just like the way we have it on our side. Even they have a project management team, right? So that project management team will have an internal project manager, a key user from the purchase, key user from the sales, key user from the finance, and all the modules. And, probably the CEO also might be a part of this project kickoff call. And from our side, we will have all the consultants, the functional consultants, depending upon the scope of the work. We also need to have a technical resource, right? There might be a requirement wherein it may or may not be captured as part of the statement of work. So whenever a kickoff initiation happens, there is a statement of work that the customer signs as part of the contract. The sales team and the customer, they get in touch with each other. And then there is a KT session which happens between the sales team and the implementation team, right? Now, when we talk about the implementation team, there could be a project manager, a director who is actually heading the project, and then you will have a couple of functional consultants, another technical consultant maybe, right? It varies right from your junior level to your senior levels. Okay. So a senior functional consultant might be conducting all the sessions with the client, and they would walk through, and they will get in touch with the client. All the client sessions are handled by them. Now the junior resources, the junior functional consultants that we have, they would usually handle the data migration stuff, wherein the client interaction is minimal. I mean, they don't get in touch with the client so much because of the experience they have. Probably they are into NetSuite or ERP, or any job background for just about 2 to 3 years, and so on. So these guys would help in the backend activities which happen during the project. And then there is a technical resource who would help in the coding. Whenever there is a custom requirement, like the report customizations, advanced workflows, if you have to create a saved search which is used somewhere else, in that case a technical resource is actually used. And there might be some integrations as well, by the way. So Salesforce integrates with NetSuite, Bill.com integrates with NetSuite, and there are some integration tools which are used as part of this, Celigo, Delbumi. There are certain third-party connectors which use for these integrations. So these technical resources that we are talking about would be handy if we have integrations or any customizations on that project. So there might be a few projects wherein no customizations are there and no technical resources are involved as well. So there should, if there is a huge requirement for the customizations, right? You might have technical solution architect also available on the call, and they have to guide the customers as to what happens. So that is exactly what happens in an initiation and the project kickoff meeting. All the consultants from our side, all the stakeholders, all the key users from the customer side would be part of that call, and then they get introduced, because over the course of next 4 or 5 months or 6 months, of the implementation, these are the people who have to work hand in hand, and that's the reason they get introduced to themselves as part of the kickoff meeting, right? Wherein we prepare a project plan as to that. There are several phases, right? Engage, drive, enable, convert. So we would say that let us say the project starts on March 1st, right? In the engage phase, there are certain activities that we do, the share data migration templates, conduct global template delivery session, personalization sessions. I'll let you know what these are, by the way. Okay, we have an extensive presentation for that as well. So in these engage session that we have, like 4 or 5 activities, probably it'll take about 40 days for us. So a project plan is prepared in such a way that we give these dates to the client, saying that maybe on April 10th, we will finish off the engage stage. And then May 15th, the drive phase it gets over. June 20th, the enable gets over. And August 1st is when you go live, after the convert stage is done. So that is exactly what is prepared as part of the project plan. Okay. Any questions on this so far, Suresh or Karthik? I'm pretty sure Gopi must be aware of all these because he's a project manager, it seems. So I'm pretty sure he must be aware of these things. Karthik, Suresh, any questions on that?
No, Kalyan.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Right. So when I'm saying share data migration templates, we have to import the master data into the system. Now, the customer may be using a different ERP at this point in time, right? So from that ERP, there is so much of master data that we need to import, like the subsidiaries, vendors, customers. I'll let you know what all these are when we are going into the system. But there is a set of master data that would be used over and over again. Now, when I'm referring to master data, it is a data which is static, which is already created in the system, and you will use this data in the transactions over and over again. Like in case of purchase orders, you might create 50 purchase orders on a single vendor, right? And you might have included 50, you might have included single item on that purchase order. So these items are created only once within the system. So that master data includes your subsidiaries, vendors, customers, partners, contacts, your and then chart of accounts, okay, which is into accounting. I'll let you know. So that is a part of the master data. So you share these data templates with the client. I will show you an example of what a data migration template looks like. So for all the transactions, for all the master data, we will have the data migration templates readily available with us. So we will share those templates. The customer has to fill in those templates with the data, send them back to us, and our consultants would actually import the data into the system. That is what your data migration is all about. Okay. And then we have the personalization sessions. I'll tell you what those sessions are in the next slide. So that is what comes as part of the engage phase. Then in the drive phase, we actually capture and update the solution designs. What exactly is the requirement? If they have certain change requests, if they have a few customizations to be done, if they have any integrations to be done as part of that. So all those are captured, and then we design solutions, right? And then we build and test the solutions, whatever, whatever requirements they have as part of the customization. We not only as part of the customizations, but also we set up the initial system with the master data that we've already imported. We will set up the initial system, and we actually do a sprint one, which is called a CRP. It's sort of, it actually varies from organizations. CRP is nothing but a classroom pilot. Okay, those are called classroom pilot sprints. And if it's Oracle, then they call it as walkthroughs, right? If it is some other company, they call them as demo 1 and demo 2. So it all depends on the language that the organization uses. So we do a walkthrough one kind of a session wherein we show to the clients as to how the system works. If it is a procurement team that is on the call, then we set up the procurement session, and then we show them how the purchase cycle works. Order to cash, the sales cycle works, right? All these things are done as part of the walkthrough sessions. And then the compiling of the UAT test cases. right? So after the walkthrough is done, we compile the entire functionality, the entire requirement, and we divide, we give them UAT test cases with detailed steps. They have to go through the UAT test cases and sign them that everything is working fine. So in the enable phase, you've got you will finalize all the solution designs. The entire master data is along with the transactions are actually migrated during this phase. Okay, we will finalize what are the user manuals. User manuals are nothing but the documents that you share with the client along with the steps. Let us say you have implemented fixed assets management for them. So NetSuite standard actually provides fixed assets management manuals. It also provides procure to pay, sales orders, everything. All the manuals are already there, but you might have to tweak them. You have to prepare certain documents, and those documents are shared with the clients. Okay. So super users will train the end user. So these 5, 6 people that we spoke about at the start of the call, right? The key users. Now these key users, they go back and train their end users on NetSuite system. As in the enable phase, they show them how, they learn from us what NetSuite is, what's the navigation, how is the process flows and everything. And once they have a hands-on experience, they go back to the end users and train them on the product. Then the user acceptance testing is done, right? The cutover planning, wherein we have to, as part of the go live activity, there are certain migration that is supposed to be done, right? There's something called as OpenAR, OpenAP. I'll tell you those in detail. So all these things are done as part of the data migration. Once the system is ready, then we do a sanity testing, and then in the convert phase, they just go live. And there is a hypercare program, which can last for over a month or 2 months, depending on the contract that they've signed. Okay. So this is the entire methodology, whatever company you go into, right? These are the only things which happen as part of the ERP implementation, especially NetSuite implementation. Okay, because NetSuite is not vast, as I have already informed. This is only for medium and small range companies. So this is the exact procedure which happens as part of the implementation. Any questions on this?
No, Kalyan.
Good,
Great, great. So as part of the deliverables, now when I'm talking about deliverables, these are nothing but the documents that we prepare during the entire implementation phase. It actually depends on what the client has um, what they've paid for. So a few clients do not go for the documentation at all, but a few clients want the extensive documentation from us, right? So the documentations include business requirement document, functional requirement document, technical requirement document. Okay, these are called BRD, TRD, and FRD. Okay, so these business requirement document is nothing but you get in touch with the client, you understand their requirements as a business analyst. There is a business analyst as well as part of that particular project. They take the complete requirement, and then the business requirement document is built. When a technical resource talks with the client about the customizations, then there is a technical requirement document which is done. And then there is a functional requirement document as well. What all functionality is included within the project? Do they have procurement? Do they have sales? Do they have manufacturing? Or do they have project to cash? Whatever it is, a functional requirement document is prepared for that. So all these things that you see on the screen right now are, a sort of deliverables that we provide to the users and during the entire cycle, implementation cycle. User role mapping document. It could be test cases for UAT. Obviously you have to give them a test case, and then the classroom pilot demo and sign off. Once the demo is done, we need a sign off from them. There's a super user training document as well, which is prepared. So all these deliverables that you see on this slide right now are the set of documents that we provide to the clients. Okay. Now let us go into the implementation sessions. What exactly happens as part of the implementation. So there is a kickoff call, as we already spoke about it, implementation consultants, project manager, delivery leads, and then the you have the people from the client side. And then there's something called as getting started session. Okay, there's a standard operating procedure. Now, what is a getting started session? All the stakeholders are a part of this call. I mean, irrespective of the modules they are dealing with, right? Later on, they divide and be a part of the other modules as such. But getting started is a session wherein we show how to log in, how to set the passwords, how to set up the users, what is the navigation between each session, what is a master data, what exactly is the transactional data, how do you navigate between these two things, setting up these things. It's just the getting started session. We ensure that all these 6 to 8 key users have got access to NetSuite. We set them up. We take their email IDs, we take their phone numbers, we take their names, and we set them up so that they access the system and they understand what NetSuite is all about, how the navigation works. Okay, any questions on that?
No.
Yes, one question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, what is this session 2 hour? Because is it something like a standard time which we spend for
uh,
this
okay,
particular call?
good question. So in a typical NetSuite implementation, right, there is a suite success methodology which Oracle follows. So in that suite success methodology, every session is allocated 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Okay. So all these sessions usually last for 2.5 hours, but just in case if there is additional requirement, then the session is obviously rescheduled, or they extend the sessions and everything is done. But it's a basic 2 hour session which is done. Any session for that matter, the walkthroughs, the personalization sessions that we're talking about, usually they last for 2 hours. But if the requirement is not completed in that couple of hours, then they schedule another call for another couple of hours, and then those things actually carry on. Okay,
Thank you.
great. So there are different NetSuite modules. Now, when I was talking about ERP in general, I was talking about purchasing, I was talking about sales, I was talking about manufacturing as general terms. Okay, but on NetSuite, the terminology is a little different. I mean, they have defined the standard terminology based on the activities performed in that cycle only. So if you see, the first module is actually called as design to build. Okay, it's called D2B. So in this design to build, you will have the complete item structure. What are the different types of items that the customer has, right? It could be inventory, non-inventory, other charge items, service items. Now, when we say service items, you must have visited a lot of service centers, right? Laptop servicing or mobile servicing. So there is no physical item that they actually provide, but they just give the service, right? And you also must have booked some online services, right? So so even any work, any home work that you want to get done, the painting, the drilling, the carpentry, you might have anything. So these are all services. So a company which actually offers service will actually just they provide only the services. So the items are created as servicing, like painting, denting, you might have any work, plumbing, right, carpentry, anything that the client actually specifies would be a service item. Now, what is an inventory item? A physical item which exists in the warehouse is your inventory item. Like in case of IKEA, you go there, you have loads and loads of inventory, right? Every item that you purchase is an inventory item. There is nothing called as a service. There might be service which they offer online, so like some sending out someone to assemble a table. So those kind of servicing would be there, but whatever you see in the IKEA is actually the inventory. So there are non-inventory items as well, like you have the service item, you have a non-inventory item, you have a charge item, you have a discount item, right? So the entire structure as to what is the costing of that item. It could be a standard costing, it could be an average costing. I'll let you know what all those things are while we deal with the item structure whenever we are creating the items, right? By the way, items are also part of the master data. Okay, because they are used over and over again during the transactions. So item is a part of the master data. So anything which is related to item structure, inventory, and the manufacturing part is called design to build. So if you go by the literal meaning, is that we are designing, we are building something to actually sell it. So that is what yours is, your design to build all about. So just remember these abbreviations, guys. I mean, usually when you attend the interviews and all, they wouldn't say that they wouldn't use the words like manufacturing or item structure. They just say design to build. Have you worked on design to build? What is your experience with design to build? Right, so these are the terms which you have to remember. Right, then comes the, okay, so these are the different modules of NetSuite. I'm just explaining you the modules. Okay, after the getting started session, there is a personalization session which happens. I'll let you know what happens during those sessions, but I'm just giving you a brief overview as to what these modules are actually. Okay, and then you have procure to pay. So literally, if you go by the word translation, it is something that you are procuring. You're purchasing something and you're paying for it. So that is the reason it is procure to pay. Right? Does it make sense?
Yes.
Yes. Right? So that is called procure to pay. Now, what is included as part of the procure to pay? You have the vendors. Okay. The vendors are nothing but your, wherever you are purchasing it from will become your vendor. Right? Amazon, if you place an order with the Amazon is your vendor. He is sending out their material to you and you become their customer. As simple as that. So this is the basic difference between a vendor and a customer, guys. I mean, just imagine yourself. You will be a customer, right? But you're placing an order to a vendor. A vendor will actually, and I mean, see, a vendor is such a simple term which is being used. Even if you go to a shop, any shop nearby, those are your vendors, vegetable vendors, right? Your supermarket vendors. So they are nobody, but they are selling their material to us. So that's the reason they are termed as vendors. Okay, so there are purchase requests as part of it, purchase orders. I'll let you know what all these are. I mean, when we are dealing with the procure to pay cycle, the entire cycle, I will show you how to create the vendors, how to create the purchase orders, where exactly the items are entered, what is a blanket purchase order, right? Now, a blanket purchase order is nothing but to tell you just in a layman's term, right? Blanket purchase order is, I am a company and I buy 50 items from my vendor on a monthly basis. Okay, so I do not want to create 12 purchase orders manually all the time. So in that case, we use something called as blanket purchase orders, and which actually creates a purchase order automatically on the set date that you give. Let us say first of every month I need a 50 quantity of so and so item from a vendor. Then it automatically brings in that purchase order into the system. It can bring it in, or you can actually, I mean, it will just be a click away. You can click it and then the purchase order gets created. So that is what your blanket purchase order is all about, right? And then there are some approvals. Whenever a clerk puts in a purchase order, maybe a manager wants to approve that PO, right? So those approvals are there. And then comes the item receipts. Item receipt is nothing but you are actually taking the material into your warehouse, right? You bought something, the vendor has shipped out, it arrived at your warehouse, and you're taking that inside. That's what is your item receipt all about. And then you can have requisitions. Requisition come as, I mean, they come before the purchase orders. I think I messed up with the flow here. Requisitions, purchase requests, requisitions, purchase orders, and then you have your approve POs, item receipts. Okay. So once the item receipt is done, then there is a vendor bill which is created within the system. You create I mean, they are just a click away, by the way. You can just click on the vendor bill. The procurement manager, he verifies what is the quantity, what is the amount on that bill. If everything is fine, they bill it, and then the payment is made. Okay. There's something called as three-way bill match as well. I will let you know what it is. Okay. You have your returns, you have your vendor credit. So once you got the material, let us say you have purchased 50 quantity, out of which 2 is defective. It's not working. What would you do? Even when you purchase something from Amazon, If it is defective, if it is not matching your expectation, you return it, right? So that is what your purchase returns are all about. The purchase returns are done, the vendor credit is given, right? And the item receipts, and there is something called as fixed assets management, which is acquire to retire. Okay. So fixed assets, as procure to pay is for purchasing, fixed assets management, the name of this module is acquire to retire, which means you have a property, right? You have property, or you have certain vehicles, you have some bonds, um, so which you want to show in the company as they are depreciating. All right. I mean, even if you purchase a flat for that sale, and you purchase a flat after 5 years, after 10 years, it keeps on depreciating. The value gets reduced, right? So that is what is your fixed assets management. Okay. So we'll discuss in detail what is fixed assets management later on. Guys, so design to build, procure to pay, acquire to retire. Any questions on these three?
No, no good.
Okay, Karthik, you have any
All
question?
all good, Kalyan.
Great.
Thanks.
And then there is order to cash. So just go by the literal meaning again. You are ordering, okay? I mean, the customer is ordering something, okay? And they pay. Simple. You are selling something, right? So that is what your O2C all about. So D2B, P2P, A to R, and then O to C, order to cash, is your sales process, wherein you have your customers, quotations, opportunities, same like the purchase orders. You have your purchase orders right above, and then you have your sales orders here. You're approving the sales orders. In case of procurement, you're doing an item receipt and taking the items into your warehouse. In case of sale, you would actually sell out that equipment. Let us say 50 quantity that you have bought in, and you want to send that 50 quantity out. So that will be your item fulfillment, customer invoicing, and then you accept the payments. So once the sales order is closed, that is a complete cycle of the order to cash, and then you have item returns as it is. So it's you have sent out 50 quantity, but even the customer might think that they do not want 50, or there are some defective pieces and they want to send it back as well, right? So you take that into the system, you give a customer refund, and then item receipt of those things are actually done. Why are we doing an item receipt here? Because 2 quantity is shipped out from the customer, so you have to take that back into the warehouse, correct? The inventory will increase. Now I'll just give you a brief flow of how things work. Okay, 50 quantity you have taken into the warehouse, 2 items you have shipped out. So what is left out right now? 48, correct?
Correct.
48 is in the warehouse. So for that 48, you have put in a sales order. Once you ship out the 48, the customer is sending back 2 quantity, let us say. Again, your inventory is up by 2. So the available quantity here right now is 2. Correct?
Yes.
And that is the 2 quantity that you will actually send out to the vendor, because that's defective again. Right?
Mhm.
So this is how the ERP cycle actually works. Now, where are we getting the financials into this? Okay. So whenever you're creating a vendor bill and whenever you're making a payment, that is your finance. And whenever you are creating an invoice, okay. Now, remember these words, guys. In procure to pay, it is called a vendor bill. Okay. So vendor bill is nothing but a bill that you are actually creating against a vendor, and you have to make a payment. Now, invoice is something that you're actually creating against a customer, and you have to receive the payment against the invoice. Okay. There's a very good chance initially that you might get confused between these vendor bills and customer invoicing, but that is the reason they are just not calling it as bill and invoice. Okay. So if you call it as bill and invoice, there's a very good chance that you might get confused. But if you're calling it as vendor bill, then you know that you're dealing with purchase. When we're calling it customer invoice, then you know that you are actually dealing with the sales process. Okay. So this customer invoicing and accepting payments, the vendor bill and making the payments, all these are recorded as part of the record to report, which is R2R, completely finance. Okay, so the finance module is actually called as record to report. So you are actually recording everything which is related to finance, and end of the month you're reporting it as well. So that is the reason it is called record to report. Right? Does it make sense?
Yes.
Great. So what all are included as part of the record report? You have your GL structure, which is general ledger. Okay. In terms of finance, there are some accounts which are maintained, right? So just to give you a layman language of what records are, okay? I mean, what accounts are. When you go to a vendor, you're actually making a payment with your card. You're actually making an online payment, right? Now, all these things, they actually go into the bank accounts, correct? They might have an HDFC account, they might have an ICICI account, and they might have a Citibank account. So these three accounts are called the bank accounts. Okay, so there are different types of general ledgers that we actually create. So these three are something which are actually maintained on NetSuite as bank accounts. Okay, we will discuss about them in detail when I go to the chart of accounts, but I'm just giving you a brief overview of what chart of accounts are all about. Okay, now when you're actually doing a purchase order, and when you are creating a sales order, when you are creating these vendor bills and invoices, there are certain accounts which actually capture these transactions as well, and those accounts are in the NetSuite. Okay, it is called your accounts receivable, right? There is accounts payable, accounts receivable, and bank accounts. Just remember these three guys, these three accounts, guys. These are very, very important accounts. Okay, accounts receivable is nothing but which is linked with your sales. You receive the payment, and that is called accounts receivable. Accounts payable is the account that you actually make a payment from, right? And then the bank accounts. So the bank account is actually the original account which gets credited or debited as part of the transactions. Okay. Any questions on the GL reporting?
Yes, one question. So, do we have any integration between these chart of accounts and our original accounts?
No,
Like when the amount is debited, will it get reflected in this chart of accounts?
no, there's no direct integration. However, very good question, Suresh. There is something called as bank reconciliation. Okay, there are certain suite apps also which are called bank feeds. So usually what happens is, as I told you in the very first class, you are not making a payment, or you're not making, or not receiving the payment directly on NetSuite. It is just a tool wherein you have to record the payments. The entire payments happen outside of NetSuite, right? Through net banking, through your credit cards, through whatever means, they happen outside of NetSuite. Okay, so there are two transactions here. One is the actual transaction which happens on bank. You are paying, you are receiving. And then the next transaction is something that you enter in the system. Now, how do you collaborate between these two? Right? End of the month, what finance team does is there's something called as bank reconciliation. So whenever you make a transaction like an NEFT payment or an RTGS payment, there is a reference number that gets generated. Okay. So that they take that reference number and the transaction date and the amount. Okay. So there is bank reconciliation, which actually there are some Excel sheets that you actually import, putting in all these amounts, dates, and the transaction IDs. And then based on, you can create certain rules saying that, on so and so date, if I made so and so payment, it has to get striked off, knocked off. So it will be a debit and a credit on NetSuite. Okay. So what you're doing, basically what you're trying to do is, there is a transaction that you've done on NetSuite for, let's say, $10,000. Okay. And that $10,000 that you have made a payment actually has to reflect in the bank account as minus $10,000 because you're making a payment, correct?
Yes.
So
Yes.
that exactly. So that 10,000 on NetSuite, a minus 10,000 on your bank account would have to reconcile. So that is what your bank reconciliation is. Okay, so end of the month, there is a process wherein you upload an Excel sheet with all these transactions, and NetSuite automatically cancels out these transactions. If you are receiving a payment into NetSuite, I mean, into your bank account, then that would be a credit. right? And on NetSuite, you have to show that as a debit.
So that will happen only monthly?
Correct.
Okay.
Usually it happens as part of the month end process. There is something called as month end process on the ERP system, wherein they actually generate a few journal entries. They do the advanced revenue management, and then the bank reconciliation is done, because this is a month end activity. Okay, it's called a month end activity. Any organization would do it as part of the month end only. Okay, now what are journal entries? See, journal entries are, let us say you have used your credit card to actually give a party to your employees, right? Where is it recorded? It cannot be recorded as part of the procure to pay or order to cash. It cannot be, shown like that. So it can either be shown as expense reports, or finance team actually enters a journal entry saying that, on so and so date, using so and so account, we have paid so and so to the vendor for a party kind of a thing, or a recreational activity that was performed. So that's what your journal entries would actually do. Anything that cannot be shown in the system as part of any transaction can be entered as a journal entry. It can be your travel expense, it can be your dining experience expense, or anything that you actually do within the company can actually be entered as journal entries, or it can be entered as your expenses. Okay. So that's a brief introduction about the record report. And then you have a customer relationship management, which is called as CRM, right? So D2B, P2P, A2R, O2C, R2R, CRM. CRM is your leads, within the system. Who is your lead? Anybody who is interested in your product would actually be a lead, right? So you can, if you have, worked in any sales firms or any marketing firms, you would hear these terms a lot, like leads, customers, support, and lead to quote. This is called the other module. There are two other modules: lead to quote and marketing to ROI. Marketing to ROI is nothing but marketing to return on investment, right? How much are you spending on the marketing, and what is the return on investment? So these are all the modules that you have, right? D2B, P2P, O2C, A2R, R2R, lead L2Q, M to ROI, marketing to ROI, and call to resolution. Okay, call to resolution is also a module, C2R it is called. Now, what is call to resolution? Whenever you buy something online, let that be Flipkart, Snapdeal, or Amazon or something, the product hasn't reached yet, you want to know what is the status, and then you raise a ticket or you send an email. So that is what is your call to resolution is. The company accepts your query, they respond back to you, they call you, they send you an email. Everything is part of the call to resolution, and all those things can be done on NetSuite as well. So the entire configuration for all these modules, design to build, procure to pay, order to cash, record to report, customer relationship management, call to resolution, marketing to ROI, and lead to quote. These are the different modules. Just remember these words, okay? You will get used to it, by the way. I mean, I know that this might be the first time you are hearing these words, and it might be a little, inconvenient for you to, but just understand the meaning behind these words, and it's very easy for you to remember them. Procure to pay, paying for purchasing. Order to cash, accepting payment for something you sell. Record to report, you're recording and then you're reporting. Customer relationship management, you're dealing with the customers, the leads, customers, and everything. And lead to quote and call to resolution, marketing to ROI. These are all simple layman. The reason why they have come up with this terminology is because it is easier for the customers to remember these things as well, right? Okay, so that's about the modules. Any questions?
No.
Great. So there is an advanced module which is called as P2C, project to cash. It's not covered as part of this training, guys. I mean, that's an advanced topic. Usually, services clients actually take this module, okay, wherein the budgets are defined. There are some tasks allocated, for the resources to be able to book the time. Okay, there is something called as time and material. So what happens is, there is, you must have worked on a lot of software project, guys. Simple. You must be booking your hours as well. So that is nothing but your time and material, right? So the resources, what they do is, You have 5 resources on a project. 3 of them are booked the entire 40 hours, and the other 2 are maybe booking just 20 hours on that project. So as and when someone books a time, you can actually take that time and material and then do a customer invoice based on the time and material, right? Then there is milestone billing. Now, milestone is nothing but there are certain activities which are defined. Now, let us say I know we were talking about the NetSuite implementation itself, right? The enable, engage, convert phases that we're talking about. So each phase is defined as a milestone, and after the end of each milestone, the customer invoicing is done. And then we have the rate cards and billing cycles. So the rate cards, how they work is, see, there are different bands for the consultants, as I told earlier. There is a solution architect, there's a senior solution architect, there's a technical developer, there is a functional analyst, senior functional analyst. So the billing rate cards are defined based on the roles that they perform. So it doesn't matter who is working on them. All it matters is what is the role that this guy actually has. So based on the role, the rate gets picked up automatically from the NetSuite. So I might have 10 functional consultants. I might have 5 senior functional consultants, right? I do not want them to actually, booking the time and these things, and I do not want to calculate based on that. So what I do, I define billing rate cards, and based on the role that they are performing, it automatically picks up the rate. Okay. That's what is your rate cards all about, billing rate cards. And then you have service to cash and managed services. What is managed services? Managed service is nothing but you have implemented NetSuite and your client has actually, they've gotten the implementation done. So post implementation, there is a post go live support as well. So there is a NetSuite service which is provided to the client whenever they have an issue with the NetSuite. They're not able to log in. They're not able to do certain transaction. They're getting certain errors, right? In that case, there is a ticket, and that is handled by the NetSuite support. There is a standard NetSuite support team which actually handles this stuff, right? Any questions on this?
Oh, yes. So does the client bill will NetSuite bill the client for maintenance services also? Like
Absolutely,
if they
yes.
raise a
There
ticket?
is an annual maintenance, yes. NetSuite bills client. There is a maintenance, and based on the contract that they have, they have gold subscription, they have emerald, they have platinum subscription. So it depends on how much they pay. The support actually, the SLA, service level agreement is done for how many hours do they have to respond, and all these things are done. As it's a normal support process, guys. You must have worked on all support projects earlier, and also it's just that way it works. Okay, so this is a brief introduction about the modules that NetSuite has. So coming back to our project methodology, after the getting started session, what happens? After the getting started, you have the personalization sessions. Okay, so in these personalization sessions pertaining to each module, again, I have mentioned all the modules, if you can see here, right? Design to build, procure to pay, order to cash, record to report, lead to quote. So the functional candidates that we have, the functional consultants that we have, let us say I'm an expert on design to build. So I'm an expert on design to build and procure to pay. So I handle those two. Suresh is an expert on order to cash and record to report because he's a finance guy. So he handles these two modules. Karthik handles lead to code and project to cash. And then Gopi handles all the technical stuff, let us say. Okay. So I, as a functional consultant, what I do is there might be like 3 or 4 procurement key stakeholders who I have got introduced as part of the kickoff call. So I will deal with these 3-4 guys. I will set up the sessions for design to build and procure to pay. Okay. These sessions are called personalization sessions. So why are the personalization sessions done? Because we understand the customer requirement and we show them what NetSuite can do. As part of the enable features, accounting preferences, support preferences, sales preferences, and invoicing. Okay. So if I'm dealing with design to build and procure to pay, I take care of, I deal with enable features, accounting preferences related to procure to pay and design to build only. Suresh will handle enable features and accounting preferences related to order to cash and record to report. Likewise, every consultant would actually enable and disable certain features based on the customer's requirement, and these things are actually documented. Okay, because probably a week or 10 days later, the customer should not come back and say that, why did you disable this feature? I never asked you to do that. So that is the reason there is a procure to pay, design to build, personalization nodes which are built, and these nodes are actually saved in the NetSuite instance. There is a file cabinet wherein you can put up all the documents and you can put up all the required stuff on the file cabinet, so that both the customers and the NetSuite consultants will have access to these documents. So after getting these personalization sessions done, right, every module will be of 2.5 hours, as I have mentioned earlier. So we take the complete requirement, we configure the system based on their requirements, and then we prepare everything. So as part of the record to report, right, we actually show them what all features are available. By the way, when we get into NetSuite, I will show you what are the features which are related to P2P, which are the features related to O2C, R2R, lead to quote, project to cash. All these things we will discuss in detail. But for now, I'm just explaining you what is a personalization session. Okay. Any questions?
All right.
No.
Great.
One,
So
one
once the,
question.
sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. So you said the functional consultants will be sitting with the client. Okay. My understanding is, like for example, my question is basically, so every functional consultant will only work on the specific module, or will they be expert on all the modules?
Great question again. So for different ERPs, let us say there is a huge ERP like an Infor LN ERP, like BAN ERP or Salesforce, okay, or SAP for that matter. So these are such huge ERP systems that not everybody would be able to do everything. It is highly impossible. So if you are in the procurement track, you will remain in the procurement track till you end up. Okay, because it is so vast. You have fixed assets, you have procurement, you have item receipts, you have freight in that. So there is so much of the module is so big that each person will be allocated to only one module. But the beauty of NetSuite is that you will learn everything right from your data migration till your go live. Whatever is included, even if it is procure to pay, if it is finance, if it's a sales process, if it's manufacturing, lead to quote, project to cash, you will have to do everything. So what I meant to say is, today, if you're working on design to build and procure to pay in this project, tomorrow you might be working on order to cash, record to report on a different project. And on the third project, you might be working on lead to quote and project to cash. So you should have knowledge of every module end to end. And it is easy, guys. I mean, this is a small ERP. So it is literally easy for you to understand and navigate through the entire different processes. So what we do in this 20 hours of training is the same. We will go through every module that you see on the screen here, except for the project to cash. So I will let you know each module. When we are starting each module, I will let you know what exactly that we are starting certain module. You would understand the entire flow. Like initially we start off with the data migration stuff. Then we start off with the master data. Once that is done, I will show you what is lead to quote. So that is the initial stage for the order to cash. Okay. And then I'll show you what is marketing to return on investment. And then we will jump into the design to build, procure to pay, order to cash, and the manufacturing stuff. Okay. Any questions?
I have one question on the data migration things. So what if it is a startup and it is not using any of the ERPs earlier? So how does the data migration go here? Like,
wonderful. So even if you have, okay, if it is a startup, okay, let us say that they're just starting the business. In that case, they will just have the master data and the transactional data will not be there. The old purchase orders, the old sales orders, the old work orders, all these things will not be there. Okay. However, See, there are three types of customers here. One is a customer who's just starting off, and those customers usually don't go for ERP system because they're just starting. They maintain everything on an Excel sheet, Word documents, all these things. Okay, so if they are into business, like 1.5 year into the business, and then they want to get into NetSuite, then obviously you will have the data in the Excel sheets, and that Excel sheets have to be put into NetSuite. All the data that you have as part of the Excel sheet, whatever they've maintained, it could be OneNote, it could be a Word document, an Excel sheet, the data that they are maintaining, everything, you can convert that into NetSuite data, and then you have to import into the system. Now, the third type of customers are, they already have another ERP, they're switching, which is a little easier. They just dump, they just pull the data from the previous system, like QuickBooks. It could be your SAP, it could be your, there's something called as GRD, LN, whatever it is. So all sorts of ERP, they pull the data from that ERP and then they actually give it to you, and you have to input into the system. Okay. So after the personalization sessions, then we have the initial data migration. Now, what is an initial data migration? We create the complete subsidiaries, which are your legal entities. Like, as I said earlier, the customer might be doing his business from California, from Delaware, from Connecticut, from all 3 or 4 different places. They have legal entities. So those are your subsidiaries. And then we create the segmentation, which is your locations, departments, and classes. I'll let you know what is the difference between these things when we come there. Okay. And then chart of accounts, the entire structure. After that, what we do is, as a sample, right? There might be 150, 200 vendors and like 500 customers. But initially, what we tell the customer is, we ask them to send in only 5 vendors, 5 customers, and 5 items. Okay. The reason why we do is to go for the classroom pilot session, which is called as the walkthrough one as well. So we set up the system with subsidiaries, segmentation, chart of accounts, sample vendors, sample customers, and sample items. After setting this up, based on the customer, see, you can ask me that why do they have to send sample? We can also create like test vendor, test customer, and test item, right? The basic idea behind asking them to send the sample data is they have to get acquainted with the data migration templates that we send to them. There are standard templates, as I have mentioned earlier, right? So those standard templates, they have to get used to these templates, because later on they have to fill 150, 500 customers, 150 vendors. So they need to understand what field has got which data. So in order for them to make them comfortable with these, the templates, and also when we do a walkthrough, we actually want them to think that that's a live data that we're dealing with, right? So I can say a test vendor, but then they might have a vendor within the system which they are dealing with, like probably an MRF tires that they buy tires from. So they give the vendor details, address, and everything. So we create that as vendor, and we use that vendor while we are doing the walkthrough. Now, what is a walkthrough? So whoever does the personalization session, I have done B2B, P2P. So I will handle these walkthroughs again with the clients. Suresh has done O2C, R2R. He will handle those walkthroughs again. So what is a walkthrough? We show the system, we show the NetSuite system to the clients, and we show the entire cycle of a procure to pay. So what is a cycle? This is the cycle. What is the cycle? Vendors, purchase requests, purchase orders, blanket purchase orders, item receipts, requisitions, vendor bills, 3-way bill match, and we close a purchase order. The purchase returns are done. So entire cycle is shown to the client within that 2-hour session when I do a procure to pay. Likewise, design to build. What is a part of it? Item structure, inventory, manufacturing, everything comes as part of design to build. I show that to the client. So Suresh conducts a walkthrough on the order to cash and record to report. Karthik does a walkthrough on the lead to quote and project to cash with those stakeholders for these 2.5 hours of the walkthrough one, which is done with the sample data, which is provided by the client. Okay. So once the walkthrough one is completed, or the classroom pilot session one is completed, then we will have the complete data migration phase. What is a complete data migration phase? So there we've taken only 5 vendors, 5 customers. Here we'll ask for the entire list of vendors and customers they have, along with the address, phone number, email ID, bank accounts, and everything. And then items, complete items, non-inventory, inventory, assembly, kit items, everything we get from the client. Subsidiaries, as it is, we already imported, so that's fine. Segmentation, delta data, just in case if they have not provided certain classes, departments, and locations earlier in the data migration phase, they have to give it here in full. So we get that. The chart of accounts are, we have to get the delta data for the chart of accounts. And then we have the expense vendor categories, expense categories, and customer categories that we need to import. Okay. So this is a list of complete data migration, which is done after the walkthrough one is done. And then based on the walkthrough one, we actually create the UAT test case scripts. We provide them to the clients. Now, all this, remember guys, the templates that I'm talking about would be on the file cabinet. The filled in templates by the client, they would be on the file cabinet as well. No email sharing. You don't have to send emails across and you don't have to wait for all these things. But the templates and everything are actually stored on the file cabinet directly. Okay. And now you have a time frame for each phase that we have already discussed earlier, right? So based on that time frame, based on the dates, you have to push your clients to provide you the data so that you can import into the system. That is what your complete data migration does. And as part of the UAT test cases, you have to provide every step, right from click on transactions, go to purchase, go to procurement, go to purchase orders, click on new, enter the vendor, select the vendor, select the item, put in the amount. All these things are part of the UAT test cases. So you have to document each and every step that happens as part of this UAT. And the users actually train those their end users. They have to test these UAT test cases, and then they have to do a sign off. Now, after that is done, you have a walkthrough 2. Okay, these are client-led sessions. Now, walkthrough 1 is a consultant-led session wherein we are actually walking the customer through the process. Now, what is walkthrough 2? The key users set up the calls with the consultants. We stay on the calls, and then we expect them to walk us through the system like the way we've done the walkthrough 1. The reason why we're doing is to gauge the customer comfort levels on the system. If they're stuck somewhere, we actually guide them on the call and we are with them so they understand what exactly is and what needs to be done after each step. There is a sequence of steps that, whenever you look at these design to build, procure to pay, O2C, R2R, these things, there are certain steps that you have to follow one after the other, right? So those steps, we actually see if these people are comfortable and if they are comfortable with the navigation and everything. Okay. So after any questions on that?
No.
Okay. So after the walkthrough 2 is done, there is a walkthrough 3, which is optional. What happens is, based on certain sessions that they conduct, right, we gauge the level of comfort. Let us say I did not tell them properly what is procure to pay. So if I did not tell them, they will not be comfortable, correct? So let us say the purchase users were not that comfortable. So I do a walkthrough 3 again with them to make them understand what is this all about. And then we do a system refresh. Okay. So before I talk about the system refresh, there are 2 things. One is a production account and there is a sandbox account. Okay. So all these things are actually done in the production itself directly. What are test transactions that they do, the UAT test cases and everything are done on the production itself. So once everything is done, what we do is, before we go live, we are nearing the go live date. So once the UAT sign off is done, once the walkthrough is done, all the required master data is imported. At that instance, what we do is we delete the test transactions, all the purchase orders, all the work orders, all the journal entries, all the FM related depreciation entries. These things, there are all the transactions we delete and keep the system clean, like a brand new slate. Okay. So after that is done, there is a go live data migration which has to be done. What is a go live data migration? So till here, whatever we've done is master data imports, right? Customers, vendors, items, subsidiary segmentation, chart of accounts, expense categories, vendor categories. All these things are your data migration masters. Now, just before you go live, there is some transactional data that you have to import into the system. As we spoke about, this is applicable only to the users who already have certain open purchase orders and open sales orders. If it is a brand new business, then obviously all these things are not required. Okay, so what all are migrated as part of the um, as part of your go live? Okay, there are open purchase orders. Okay, so open purchase orders, what do you mean by open purchase orders? Any idea what that is?
Which is still in progress.
Absolutely right. So March 1st is when I'm going live. I have placed an order on February 28th, 29th, and I did not receive the material yet. I mean, not only on 28th, probably on January, in December also I've placed some orders, but I did not receive, and they are open. They might be, I mean, the material might not have received, or maybe the vendor payment did not happen, right? So those are your open purchase orders. Whenever the item receipt is pending, sorry, not the pending bills, don't go by that. Only the open purchase orders wherein the inventory is not received, that is your open purchase order. So we send them a template and ask them to fill all the details from the purchase order. What are the details? We need the vendor, we need the item, we need the quantity, and we need the amount, right? Rate. So if you have quantity and rate, obviously the system picks up the amount, and the location. So all these things we need, they send it to us and we import into the system so that it appears as an open purchase order and they can start processing as and when they get into NetSuite. Okay. Same is the case with open sales orders. So customers have placed a few sales orders and we have not fulfilled them yet. Maybe they are under the manufacturing phase. Maybe we are, we are procuring something and we did not get it. So see, the open purchase orders and open sales orders can be linked as well, right? Say we have placed an open purchase order for a bottle, let us say, and that bottle, the same, we have an order from a customer, so we did not receive it, and that's the reason we did not ship it out. So that becomes your open purchase order and then the open sales order as well for the same item, correct?
Yeah.
So these are the things that you have to import, and then you have your open accounts receivable. Okay, see, I told about types of accounts, receivables and payables. Receivables are something that we accept the payment. So there are open invoices, which the customer did not make a payment yet. Even on March 1st, he's not making a payment. Maybe he'll make it on March 10th or 15th, but you need to have a record of that transaction, correct? So that is the reason you have an open invoice template. You send it, customer will fill that template and then send it back to you. That will be your open invoices. You have to import it as a open invoice, okay? And then the payables you are supposed to pay, which did not happen, that is called open AP. Okay, open AR and open AP. That is what I told at the start. You were confused then, but now I hope you understood what I was talking about, open AP and open AR, right?
Yes.
Great. And then the trial balances. So on each account that the customer already has, the accounts receivable, accounts payables, maybe all these things, he must have already had some balances, right? So they provide the balances and we import them as, historical trial balance as part of the journal entries. We put in the journal entry, we include all the credits and debits, and then the trial balances are imported into the system. And then there are intercompany trial balances as well. Intercompany trial balance in the sense, I have two legal entities, California, Delaware, and I do transactions between these two, right? Shipping of material, it could be anything that happens in between these two companies is called as your intercompany. So once all this go live data migration is completed, then you will have the post go live support. I mean, customer goes live, they create some transactions. If they have some issues, they will get in touch with you. And this 1 month go live support that I'm talking about is provided by the implementation team, by the way. So after that 1 month, it'll go to the NetSuite services. Okay. I'll explain that once again. So usually in NetSuite implementations are done this way. I mean, there is a production account, okay? So the entire configuration is done in the production account right from the beginning, okay?
Okay.
So normally in other ERPs, like LNERP or SAP, what happens is there is a sandbox which is built, okay?
Yes.
And then it's called a golden account. Right before the go live, they dump the entire data into the production, and then that goes live, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But in suite success methodology of NetSuite, what happens is everything is done on production, assuming that this is sandbox. It's okay. Entire master data is imported. All the test transactions, all the test workflows, saved searches, everything are built in production only. And just before you go live, they delete all these test transactions. The master data stays on. Okay, do not get confused. The subsidiaries, the vendors, customers, and everything that
I got
stays
it.
on. Okay, only the transactions like purchase orders, sales orders, journal entries, advanced journal entries, FM depreciation entries. It could be your work orders, assembly builds, right? All these things will be deleted
That
because
is only test transactions.
correct, only the
What
test
we
transactions,
create.
because you do not want to carry forward the balances onto these accounts which are there, right? Everything has to become zero, and then the open purchase orders, sales orders, accounts receivables, AP, trial balance, intercompany trial balances are imported, making it a fresh system. Everything is open, no transactions, no test transactions, by the way, and then the customers can actually take over right from day one onwards.